Premier Series welcomes you to the Memestonks Vegas 200, presented by SnoopDawgyDon on Twitch.tv live from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. I'm Austin Belke, and alongside me in the booth is J.R. Shepard. Our pit road reporter is John Hine, and the man in the production trailer is Trevor Greenfield. SnoopDawgyDon, aka Don Runkle Jr., driver of the number 00 car, has been an avid gamer/sim racer since 1998, and you can catch all of his live streams at twitch.tv/SnoopDawgyDon. JR, should be a pretty good race today. Hopefully, a couple less cautions than this time last week. If you want to run us through our track info.
Yeah, so hopefully we had good race tonight. So the weather's 78 degrees here, not too hot, 55% humidity, partly cloudy, only a slight wind, which is going to be good for controlling these cars with the less side force that they have. So yeah, this is a 1.5 mile length oval that we're going to be running on tonight. It's been very tricky with the time that I've spent out here on the track, Austin. So hopefully these guys can hang on to it and we have a good, clean race.
For sure, this is going to segue us great into the Mayhem Speed Laboratories pole sitter Travis McQuistion. Travis, of course, earns the Mayhem Speed Laboratories You Finished Last pole award. He didn't actually finish last. That went to Rhett McBride, but Rhett couldn't be here tonight, so of course the award then goes to Travis. Hey, Travis, you got a copy?
I do. How you doing?
What's up, buddy? Not as good as you starting on pole position. You're starting up front. What do you think you got to do to finish there later tonight?
Go fast. Right now on the speed chart, we're looking better than expected. So kind of looking forward to seeing what we can do. I think it's just kind of keep our nose clean and try to just keep track position. I think that's going to be huge. The cars draft up nice, but I think it's going to be hard to get around people. A lot of side drafting.
Yeah, we saw a lot of cars getting extremely loose off the corners last week in California. Is there, do the cars feel the same as they do today to you guys out of there?
Honestly, no. I'm getting a lot more aero push tonight. Feels pretty stable. Entering one's a little loose, but really it stays pretty snug all the way through the corner. But when you're behind somebody, I think you're going to see people push up into each other.
For sure. Well, we see you out there 8th on the speed charts right now, about 1.2 tenths off the leader, so doing pretty good as it goes. Anyone you want to thank before we let you go here tonight?
Yeah, I just want to thank all the guys for putting the PGRL together. It's nice to be back with everyone. It's been a while. And of course, my teammates out there, they're the ones that kind of helped me and let me know what I was getting into tonight, and it seems to be working pretty well.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Travis. Good luck in the race, man.
Thanks, and good luck in the booth.
Thank you, buddy. That was Travis McQuistion, the Mayhem Laboratories You Finished Last pole award winner, so he'll be starting first on the grid tonight as we see these drivers just now wrapping up practice, JR.
They are, and like Travis said, this track is a little bit unique. It's the car's going to be a little bit loose going into turn one. There's a bump down there that these guys are going to have to avoid, but whoever can make that bottom work the best, I think, is going to have the most opportunity to make passes tonight.
For sure. We'll go ahead and run you guys through the starting order for the grid here tonight once that comes up on our screen, and then while the cars are pacing, we'll take you through the race notes there. James Carhula starts on pole, followed by Thomas George in second. Paul Pepper lines up in third place with Mike Rasmus in fourth. Casey Campbell is on the inside of row 3 with Scott Eckrich starting in sixth. Chad Micah starts in seventh with Stephen Miller in eighth. Brad Collins lines up ninth with Don Runkle to his outside. Chris Lanini lines up in 11th with Rich Jetty in 12th. Isaiah Dupree lines up in 13th with Michael Stroll to his outside. John Perkins starts in 15th with Django Matthews in 16th. Mark Herzog starts in 17th with Norm Pelletier in 18th. Fred Thompson lines up in 19th with Michael Crowbrook completing the top 20.
And 21st, we have Jason Franks tonight. Starting 22nd will be Norm Pelletier. 23rd is John Wilco. 24th is Danny Gutierrez. 25th, Michael Stroll. 26th, Rich Jetty. 27th is Mike Rasmus. 28th will be Thomas George tonight. 29th is Chris Lanini. Starting 30th, Mark Herzog. 31st is Joe Hassert. 32nd is Joshua Biddle. 33rd is Adam Blattle. 34th will be Chris Davis. And rounding out your field in tonight's running order will be Ricky Harden starting in 35th.
Thank you for the help there, JR.
And we can see the field is pacing around here. I believe they have one to go here. We will have Travis McQuistion and Isaiah Dupree making up our front row tonight.
Yeah, the lights are out atop the iRacing pace car, so they should be getting the green flag this time by. There's Travis. We just spoke to him, driver from Tiffin, Ohio, in that number 93 Ford Mustang. So we'll look to see how early he puts his foot down. Obviously, he's chosen the inside line. I saw him kind of speed up on the initial start here and then dive down to the inside. So I think that's where he would like to restart for right now. We'll see if that continues throughout the rest of the night here. But the iRacing pace car is about to dive down pit road and hand the field over into the control of Travis here. Barney the flagman waves the green flag and Travis rockets down into turns 1 and 2. You can see the rest of the field still Noah's Ark style. He has cleared himself a good amount, but the driver on the outside going to be Pepper really holding on to him.
Absolutely, they're almost, oh yeah, they continue side by side down the back stretch here. See who gets it sorted out. The inside line is typically the faster way around Austin through turns 3 and 4. If you can hold it down, it looks like Travis gets a little tight there.
Yeah, Travis kind of just a little bit of arrow push there as they complete the rest of the corner. Paul Pepper is going to lead our first lap here. So right now it seems like the high line is where you want to be, but just behind these guys is Don Runkle Jr. He started on the inside as well, and he's kind of prevailed over the driver that started in the 4th position. The driver started in the 4th position, obviously being, it says Paul Pepper on the screen, but I don't think that's correct.
We see James Carhula here starting to try to make moves. We saw him last week really running that high line, doing something very unique compared to the rest of the guys. Right now he's kind of following in line with what guys are doing. We actually saw Bartelt actually get loose there, hitting that bump that I talked about earlier tonight, and that's very tricky, and as the tires wear, it's only going to get a little bit worse.
Yeah, JR, it really seems like you want to exit 1 a lot higher and then kind of cut back down as you go through turns 1 and 2 to kind of avoid the bump, but also, minimize the feet you're spending on the lap.
Yeah, absolutely, and that bump's pretty violent, again, especially as the tires wear, and these cars will actually bottom out over that, and it'll turn the car sideways, so you'll see guys either run the top all the way through turns 1 and 2, or do like you said, kind of go in high and exit a little bit low, maximizing that speed down the backstretch.
Yeah, so far the first 10 or 12 cars are single file. The first side-by-side battle, as you can see, one is starting to form between Don and the 00 car, and then Kevin Bartelt in that number 26. 2-time pole winner right here. Hopefully he can run a lot better than he has so far, and he's certainly up for a night like that if he continues in this place. But really about 5 laps in here. The first side-by-side battle, though, is between Norm Pelletier and the number 72. Excuse me, no, that number 72 now falling back. You can see the cars kind of shuffling themselves out there.
Guys are starting to get single file until you get back to about the 10th, 11th place running order there. And
Yeah,
that's going to happen for a little bit.
Yeah, Brad Collins, excuse me, was the driver fighting with Norm. He got loose entering turn 1, hit that bump just like you said, JR, forced him to go lose a couple spots and a lot of momentum. That's why you kind of saw the field shuffle out and get extremely wide as they went down the backstretch. Just the drivers, jockeying for position, getting themselves sorted out.
Absolutely, and these guys are going to have to be a little careful with how much they tug on that wheel. Even on the straightaways, these cars have lost a lot of side force, and you think the straightaways are easy, but they are not in these cars anymore. And this front straightaway, we've seen in the past guys actually cut the front stretch and go down on the apron and try to gain positions. You probably won't see a whole lot of that tonight just because these cars get really upset when you go from the banking down to the flat.
Yeah, even the old cars with the huge amount of side force they had on either side of the car, especially on the right side, very much more glued to the track than these things were. They still got extremely upset when you went to and from the apron. So I wouldn't be surprised if these guys did that and kind of forced each other up into the wall. Well, you saw one driver getting extremely loose there. Not quite sure who that was. I believe it was the number 61 of Jeff Gilliam, just kind of entering turns 1 and 2, and he wasn't even that low, JR.
Oh, and that's the thing as the fuel starts to wear off and the tires start to warm up, especially the rear tires. These cars get really light going into turn 1, and you have to be very conscious on how much you turn that steering wheel. Obviously, the more you turn it, the worse that condition's going to get, especially as you hit that bump down low. Guys can make it work, and the ones that figure it out will have good long run speed and be able to maneuver and make passes. So we're gonna have to stay tuned and see who is able to do that.
See Jeff Gilliam on his screen right now, still currently defending over the driver behind him of Brad Collins. He just made that pass, rather. And coming through turns 3 and 4 that last lap, I saw Joe Hazard. I believe he put his front bumper to the rear end of Mark Herzog's car, kind of forced Mark just about one lane up out of the groove in the middle of 3 and 4, and that kind of handed him a penalty. So I don't know if these cars, pack racing, or that might have been just some netcode there, but it definitely looked like it upset Mark's car.
You can get close to the guy. You don't necessarily have to touch him, but with the small rear spoilers on these things, and again, no side force, hardly at all, these things will get really loose, especially on the entry if you get close to the guy in front of you. So you will see guys use that as a tool to try to pass someone that they're having some hard times trying to pass. So yeah, that's definitely a tool that these guys can use with this car.
You see Chad Mikas right now looking for a position on the driver in 4th place of Kevin Bartelt. Coming off turns 3 and 4 that time, I believe the number 20, the 68 car rather, of Mike Rasmus got extremely loose coming out of that turn. So these cars are already getting more and more ill handling as the night goes on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that guys are not running a little higher up through turns 1 and 2. That helps remedy that situation with the car getting looser each time you go through there. So I think you'll start to see some guys move up through 1 and 2. 3 and 4 typically remains down low just because that's where the grip is and where you can get back to the throttle the earliest.
Yeah, 3 and 4, it definitely always seemed like you want to be right around, wrapping the apron almost, or at least between those 2 white dashes that are down there in the turns. These guys, like you said, JR, really using that middle of 1 and 2. You look at James Krahula, he was all the way down on the bottom. It looked like they just going to sort of hurt his speed as they come down the backstretch here. You see the number 29 car, Paul Pepper, right now looking to his inside, trying to take that position away.
Yep, the inside will definitely do that early, based on how your car is handling. I think that that bottom lane's really not going to be the preferred way
Oh,
around until
one
about
car
lap
up in
20.
the wall. 2 cars, actually. Norm Pelletier, one of the drivers up in the wall. I'm not quite sure who the other driver was. It was a white car. I think it might have been the number. Driver in the production booth getting us all the good angles here. Both those cars ended up making hard impact with the outside wall coming out of turn 4.
Norm's got quite a bit of damage to that rear end. Again, we got a lot less side force with this thing, and that damage there is just going to make that car handle a little bit worse. So he's going to have less rear force. Yeah. Oh
Oh,
man,
yeah. No, it was actually the 88 who kind of sparked off that whole chain reaction there. Yeah, it looked like Michael just got really loose on the inside and kind of just went up to catch the car, and at that point kind of made contact with Danny, and then Danny ended up getting into Norm there. Oh, I don't know. It could have been just Danny coming down on Michael. Really hard to tell from that angle.
it is a little hard to tell. The car's kind of moved weird too there, so there could have been some net code, but yeah, hard to tell from that angle.
Yeah, and of course, once the cars do get really close like that, they're kind of just magnetized together. So if you do get really close to someone, it can look like both cars come together at the same time and try to intersect one another. But usually that is not the case. But up front, still Travis McQuistion. He's led most of the laps here today. Still in 2nd place, though, Paul Pepper. They've kind of got themselves sorted back out to being single file right now. 3rd place, contesting the last spot on the podium, is James Krahula. And then you see Chad Mikas, the first driver behind those guys. Chad's done himself pretty good so far, started in 9th position, currently up 5 spots to be riding around in 4th. We've seen a lot of speed out of Chad.
Absolutely have. Through the first 3 races, he's a guy that's always up in the top 5, and he's not necessarily a guy that wants to go up there and lead a ton of laps, but he's keeping himself up there in the top 5 and in contention, and always starting to move just a little further forward toward the end of the race.
Hey, JR, I'm sure you're one of the best people that can speak to this too. Saving tires, not necessarily. You don't need to lead every lap. You just need to lead the one where you get paid and where points are awarded. So you can kind of just hold back and see what your car is doing, kind of size up your enemies. And, there's 134 laps in this race, so you definitely have some time to kind of see how things are working out here.
Oh, you absolutely do. And I mean, right now, the biggest thing that you can do is just try to take it easy and see what your car is doing compared to everyone else, and see the lines that everyone else is running. So you're going to school right now. You're trying to learn as much as you can about your competition. As we're starting to see Paul Pepper make a slight move to the inside of Travis up front.
Yeah, Paul looking to the inside here, thinks better of it going down the backstretch. It looks like he wants to try and make the pass coming out of turn 2, but he just didn't quite have the momentum that time. And of course, the longer these drivers are being checked up by one another, kind of driving side by side, allows James, Chad, and that number 72 car, Michael, to run them down more and more.
Yeah, he caught him pretty quick. So one thing that I've really noticed about these next gen cars is that if you get 2 guys side by side, they really slow their speed and momentum down, and the guy behind them is able to really gain fast. So you've seen that gap just close drastically from that, half a lap that those guys were side by side.
Yeah, that driver you saw heading down onto the apron in turns 1 and 2, just ahead of our leaders, was Danny Gutierrez, one of the drivers who made contact with the outside wall, as well as the 2 other drivers of, I believe that was Michael and then Norm. So sportsmanship move, kind of pulling off the track. You see he's got a lot of damage on that car, so he's looking to get it more and more repaired by his iRacing pit crew there on pit road. We transition the camera, though, back to the battle for the lead. You see them lapping another car down on the inside.
Yep, 46 staying down low, making sure he's giving the leaders a lot of respect there and room as they continue to race. Paul in the 29 car is continuing to get a little bit of a run, and you're starting to see these guys move up through turns 1 and 2. So if you're a guy that can make the bottom work, you need to start using that to your advantage now. Right around lap 20 is when that seems to come in.
Yeah, that driver down low was Fred Thompson, like you mentioned, in that 46, kind of staying out of the way there. James Krahula's been a driver who really likes to hog the bottom in 1 and 2, really can paint that apron. It doesn't give him the best run out of turns 1 and 2, but of course that clean air, really important once we get this far into the run. These cars start getting really, really pushy.
Yeah, they do for sure. And if you're running the bottom, your entry speed's going to be a little bit slower, and you're actually going to be tugging on that steering wheel a little bit less because you're going over those bumps. So you're having to keep that car as straight as possible. And I think it's actually going to save your front tires a little bit more because of that. So the guys that are ripping the top are probably using their stuff up a little bit more at the moment. So be interesting to see how Krahula does in a long run here if we're able to stay green.
Yeah, Krahula's trying the outside right now. I think he believes Travis McQuistion on the high side is faster. He'll prevail in this battle between himself and that number 29 car, Paul Pepper. You see right now that coming to fruition. Of course, I think James thinks this high side is faster. He's going to try it out here. And of course, that allowed Michael Krobuk to kind of catch back up on the inside. They were too wide for the first 2 rows. Right now, it's 2 wide, then 1. Travis right now, the odd man out, kind of using the middle of the track. And now it's Michael and then Chad Mikas. But Kevin Bartelt, number 26 car, trying to make his name more known.
For sure is starting to be a part of this mix here as we're getting guys almost 3 wide through turns 1 and 2. But we saw Paul Pepper take the lead there. I actually saw him do a little bit of side drafting down the backstretch, and it pulled McQuistion back right before they got into turn 3, and that allowed him to have the momentum to complete that pass.
Yeah, now Michael in that number 72 car is going to try to use the outside around the number 4 of James Krahula. Not much there, though, in draft form for him because the first 2 drivers up there are using the inside, but I suspect they'll be on the outside. So advantage James Krahula in the center of the corner, and as they come off the corner right now, it looks like the advantage goes to that number 72 of Krobuk.
Yeah, Michael Krobuk's he's moved up from 11th place already in this race into 3rd, and looks to have plenty of speed tonight. So it doesn't look like he's in a hurry, but he's definitely marching forward little by little.
Yeah, I think he's just one of those drivers who's kind of seeing what he has in the tires and what the car's going to give him, lap in and lap out, and see where he wants to put himself in terms of all these battles. Still, though, we see Travis McQuistion really battling for this lead as he has done all night long, currently in the second position. I think right now he's kind of just trying to think of a way he can get right back around the number 29 of Paul Pepper. Is now Michael's going to challenge him down the inside in turns 3 and 4. This is about the only place where you're really safe on the inside, right, JR?
I think so. Turns 1 and 2, like I said, you can really use that inside to your advantage if you can run it. But there is that big, big bump down there. The car gets really loose, and it's very easy to overcorrect and get into the guy on the outside of you.
Yeah, right there. You saw that kind of play out there. We saw the number, I believe that's the 70 car. No, sorry, 68. Mike Rasmus down on the inside. We saw him get really loose in turns 1 and 2 just from hitting the bump. Lost him about a 1 or 2 car lengths worth of position. Just trying to, having to back out of the throttle, kind of correct the car.
Yeah, it does not take much of a lift at all, and you lose a ton of momentum in these cars, and guys are just going to go right by you.
Looking at this replay here, we see Fred Thompson getting a little bit more damage after making contact with that number 56 of Norm Pelletier. Norm just not having a good night. Did so good in Daytona, won that race, and last week he was running pretty well again until he made some late race contact, not of his own doing, and then today just kind of getting involved in someone else's mistakes there. And of course, not what Fred wanted to have happen. We saw him being gentlemanly, kind of letting our leaders through there earlier in the race, staying low.
Kind of watching Mike Rasmus there. We go back up front, but Rasmus is already up from 27th starting position into 8th, and he's been one of those guys that's also been quick each and every week so far. This being the third race, so I expect him to continue to move forward. Right now, he's running behind Chad Mikas, so both of those guys trying to move toward the front.
Yeah, there was a lap car really made all the leaders kind of check up there. Not Paul Pepper, though. I think Paul got around him. He was the first driver to kind of catch him where he wanted to, and the rest of the field kind of caught him off the corner, forced a lot of guys to check up here. And you saw that's why some of the drivers were about 2 and 3 wide there as they kind of snaked their way down the front stretch, trying to get through all that lap traffic. You see, though, Chad Mikas has made some contact with the outside wall for a little bit. And like we saw last week on the real life broadcast, these cars can kind of hit the wall and recover pretty well.
Yeah, they absolutely can. As long as you don't really damage the very front portion of the car and really open up a gap on the front end, you're probably going to be able to maintain some really good speed. So Mikas is showing us that he can continue to do that at the moment. You see these cars, Austin, really moving around through turns 1 and 2, and anybody that's watching at home right now, I can tell you that these cars are not easy to drive around here. That is a big wiggle. Anytime you see the car move like that, it is pretty big.
Yeah, it was a large wiggle even in the old cars. Luckily though, for the old cars, they had a lot more side force, so they kind of straightened themselves out once they got, decently sideways. But these cars, they're pretty much just round to all the winds. So if they start spinning out, there's nothing that's going to help you straighten these things. No shark fin on the rear window. The spoiler is pretty rounded, as are the quarter panels. So, once you start going around, there's nothing stopping you but raw talent.
Absolutely, and these cars come around really quick compared to the old generation car. Looking here at Brian Yazik, he's actually moved up into second spot, it looks like.
Yeah, Brian started back in 19th. He's one driver we haven't spoke about at all so far in this broadcast, and you can tell, that only happens when someone does everything really methodically. They kind of just start picking guys off one at a time, not making any flashing moves, and you see him right now in second. He's hunting down our leader, Paul Pepper.
It's continuing to move forward here. So this is about half of a fuel run, pretty close to it, I think. So right now you're starting to see guys that have messed up their tires or probably overstepped the bounds on the front end grip that they've had so far, and the guys that have kind of been saving, just methodically moving forward. Pepper's done a nice job. He's got the lead, but I believe Yazik's done more conserving of his car, and you may see him overtake the lead in the next couple of laps here. He's looking really fast, Austin.
Certainly, we'll leave these guys on your screen so you can watch the battle. Real quickly, though, I want to talk to our pit road reporter, John Hine. John, you've kind of been crunching some numbers. Can you give us any idea about the race notes? How far these guys can go on fuel? How many tire sets they have? Is this kind of where every time you come down pit road, are you taking a set of tires?
Oh, absolutely. This far in, you definitely want to take tires. And right now, looking at when they started the race, they were running, 30 17s, for lap times. Now they're running 31 33s. They lost over a second. So if you don't get some new rubber, you're going to go back real fast here.
John, what's the kind of fuel window we're looking at here? If we have cautions, can you stretch it a little bit farther? What's the magic number, I guess, of when these guys are going to start having to make some green flag pit stops?
Well, I'm guessing it's going to be right around that, that 40, probably about 43 to 47. But the big question here is, will the tires last that long? It might get to almost to the point where these guys it becomes impossible to hang on. But right around that, that 44, 47 lap range is what they're looking at to come in and get fuel, and they'll do it again backwards, two stops maybe. But like I said, as much as they've fallen off here, and watching these cars move around, you might see some guys short pit here just to get that fresh tire and set of tires, and then they can make up some time that lap or two before everybody else pits. You could gain a good couple seconds on the track pretty easy.
For sure, doing that F1 style undercut strategy that we saw Kyle Larson and Cliff Daniels use a lot last season, but we have a new leader right now. Brian Yazik has made his way up to the front from 19th position. Another driver that's done that as well is Scott Eckrich in the number 70 car. You see him right there down on the inside of our old leader, Paul Pepper. Scott's come up all the way up from 23rd on the grid, so both he and Brian doing a well of a job, kind of meandering their way up to the field. Another driver, though, like we already mentioned a couple laps ago, Mike Rasmuth, all the way up from 27th position.
Absolutely. So we're starting to see guys from the back of the pack make their way forward. Down around 13th to 21st, we've got a lot of guys that have moved up too. So guys are starting to make their way up from where they started, that have the momentum, have the talent to save these tires and make it last. And yeah, we're getting very close to pit stop time. So it's interesting. Like John said, you could always pit and try to do that. Do the undercut, gain some time by getting out on fresh tires, but there's also the question on how many of these guys have made green flag pit stops before. How messy is that going to be?
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to bring that up. Maybe if you're one of those drivers that kind of chewed through your tires a lot faster than I'm sure you would have liked to. I think, Chad Mikas, one of the drivers we saw, he was certainly putting on a lot of moves earlier in the race. We've kind of see him falling back now into the 9th position. So just about outside of the top 10. So I feel like he's one of those drivers, you want to make a statement. You want to come back in here, get 4 more fresh field goods, kind of go out there, be the first driver on those. And right now he's only about 1.3 seconds back. So if you have that delta, compared to old tires of 1 second per lap, it only takes 2 laps and you're out here leading this thing.
Yeah, it would not take many laps at all to gain a big advantage on those fresh tires. I know lap times right now, based from practice, we're already a second slower than the fastest time that the leader ran in practice. So big fall off.
Yeah, one thing I do want to mention, though, crunching numbers here myself, these guys can make it on 2 stops, but if you burn through your fuel too fast, you'll be forced to pit for a 3rd time unless we have a caution. I wouldn't rule out a caution happening completely, but these guys, it is a 2-stop race if you save fuel a little bit, but it's going to be really close from having to come down pit road and maybe get at least a splash of gas.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's got to be in the back of your mind before you make your pit stop, just in case we go green. Um, it would be extremely exciting to see a green flag race based on last week, but I'll say for sure these guys have done a lot of homework since last week, and they're putting on a great show right now.
Yeah, they certainly have, showing a lot more racing prowess behind the wheels of these new NASCAR next-gen cars. And maybe right now, if I'm Chad Mikas, even though I do want to come in, get 4 fresh field goods bolted on this whip, I think I want to kind of wait at least another lap from here on out. I think you're going to see, yep, James Krahula, one of the drivers now coming down pit road.
Very nice job there. I was afraid for a moment he was going to get ran over from the guys behind him, but he must have communicated pretty well. He was able to get down to pit road speed, and I think he's going to start pulling some guys in behind him.
Yeah, Adam Littell is in, Chris Davis is in, Thomas George is in, Jason Franks down pit road, Jeff Gilliam, Fred Thompson, James Kahula. Yeah, all those drivers right now down on pit road. John?
Yeah, we got a total of 6, 7 drivers here, and I'm sure the leaders here next round, when they come back around here, they're all going to probably dive in here in the next lap or so, and that appears to be the case here. So now it's going to be an important thing here because you can make up this is green flag pit stops. If you can get in a little quicker, let's say a half a second, make up a half a second on somebody on pit entry or pit exit here, getting around the corner and getting back up on the track. This can be huge here to jumble up the lineup. I can't stress how important it is to be able to hit your marks and know how deep you can drive in and get on the brakes without the car jumping out from under you. Because if you can master that and drive in a bit further than the guy in front of you, you can definitely make up some serious time.
Yeah, we see a lot more drivers coming in now. You saw Joe in that number 11 car kind of, uh, kind of go through his box there, need to put it in reverse and kind of back up. You see our leaders now, Brian Yazik pitting in, Paul Pepper following him. So these guys are probably going to lose at least a second or two just based on tire wear and the amount of laps that can be put down. You saw Mark Herzog and Joe racing each other out of their stalls there, and Brian's now down on pit road. So I expect to lose about a second or two to the closest driver that pitted to him. Should only lose about a second though to Travis McQuistion. He was on pit road last lap.
Yeah, and Austin, we've seen several guys kind of go through their box a little bit. Most of the guys making it clean, but I will say that these cars are a little bit harder to stop than you would think. You know, they have very good brakes on them, but without having any heat, I mean, you're not using any brake at all out on the racetrack. If you are, you're slowing yourself down. So these brakes are extremely cold when they come to pit road, and if you don't get them a little bit warm, it's a little bit hard to stop these things.
Of course, the leader right now, Scott Eckridge, voicing that he'll be pitting this time over the radio. You see him slam on the brakes, get that car arc down into pit road. New change for the lead, though, not a new leader. Paul Pepper passed Brian Yazik on pit road. It looks like he had just a little bit better of a pit stop, and looks like Brian isn't going to let him get away with this, though. The two side drafting each other down the front stretch. Just behind them, though, James Krahula. We saw James, obviously, he was a bit further back compared to these drivers, so obviously, he gained a little bit of time, and the undercut for him kind of only by a lap or two, not a huge deal, and he's still drafting up to these guys. So you see right on your camera right here going down the backstretch.
Yeah, for sure. We see Yazik to the inside of Pepper here. These guys running side by side at the moment, and this is just going to allow Krahula behind them to gain very quickly.
Yeah, you see him, those RPM on his dashboard lighting up extremely red. Almost over revs the thing heading down into turns 1 and 2, but he run those drivers down quite a bit there. Just them being side by side really opens the air pocket. You see Scott Eckridge just behind those drivers now exiting pit. He'll be under fire though from Mike Rasmus and Thomas George. George, another driver, we saw him be extremely fast at Daytona, and then one of the leaders contending for the win last week at Auto Club Speedway.
Absolutely, he was. Riding on board with Scott Eckridge at the moment, and now Mike Rasmus. You see these guys on new tires. They're continuing to work the bottom of the track. That's where you're able to keep up your momentum early, but you do have to watch that bump like we talked about down there and not overdrive the car to upset it. And of course, through 3 and 4, everybody continuing to hunt the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom prevailing. We saw Paul Pepper, of course, take the lead from the onboard of Mike there. Paul still has the lead as they head down into turns 1 and 2. We're riding along with Paul right now. You see him kind of arcing the car down into the corner. You saw him hit that bump, though, really upset the car as he's having to go underneath the lap down car, being the number 80 up high, kind of just waving those guys down to the bottom. Josh Biddle in that number 80 car.
Yep, I think we see back in 4th spot Scott Eckridge trying to make a move on James Krahula there. So a little bit surprised by that, but James may be just trying to save his stuff for later in the run since we've already had 53 laps under green. He's probably expecting it to go green. Oh, I jinxed us, Dawson.
I don't think so. I mean, we hadn't talked about a caution for quite a long time. We'll see what the cause for caution is, though, on the Virtual Grip Network replay here. It looks like Don Runkle, but we'll see in just a second. Oh no, it was Daytona winner Norm Pelletier making contact with the outside wall again. This time though, really upset the car, kind of forced him sideways, and iRacing will not allow a car to just kind of rest on the track perpendicular to the way they should be going. So of course, it's going to throw the caution.
Yeah, and I will say turn 4 is very deceiving from the inside of these cars. You feel like you can get on the throttle so early and carry a lot of speed off the corner, but it doesn't take much to get a little bit out of the groove, and then once you are, the car just takes off. Here we see Norm actually did the opposite, and the car just got loose on him. And again, these things with the rack and pinion steering is very easy to overcorrect.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, last week at Auto Club Speedway too, JR. It looks like he kind of just had too much wheel in that car, pointing it to the right. And right now we see some more drivers coming down pit road. The first of them being James Carhula. Looks like he'll be the only driver. I don't see too many other drivers doing it. Looks like Chad Mikas and then the number 72 car of Michael Krobuk. Michael Whiting, and another one of those drivers. And these drivers didn't have too many laps on the old set of tires they had. Mark Kahn, you see him in the number 39 car in pit road, Brad Collins. But, John, only a couple laps, these guys have 7 sets of tires, so you probably want to come in and use them up, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that this isn't more about the fuel. They're going to be right on the borderline with the 2 stops. Now you get a splash and glow. So if we have another long green flag run, these guys are going to be able to stretch it now and be able to make one more stop. And I think the caution laps are going to help the guys that stopped earlier. But this is kind of a little bit of insurance policy. I would think. I think it's a good call coming in, getting that fresh rubber. We saw the fall off pretty quick here in these cars, so I expect them to have a slight advantage, and it'll probably all equal out probably about 10 laps into the run here. But you can make some hay for those 10 laps, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think one other thing this gives the drivers that just pitted is more confidence that says if we do have another long green flag run, they won't have to pit until at least 10 or 12 laps later than these drivers that have stayed out under this caution flag. So, kind of just more security to say if there is a caution that flies during that period of time, they then do not get lapped by these leaders out there. They'll have to pit first. Maybe these guys go a lap down instead.
Yeah, I mean, with a 134 lap race, and most of these other guys, your leaders, they pitted. You can see anywhere from lap 44 to about 49. Eckridge was able to stretch it out to 49. So if you start counting back, they'll be able to do this on one more stop. But like I said, if we have another long green flag run, they're going to be able to stretch it just a little bit further. But if there's a green white checkered, now they've got that. That's what that extra laps are going to be in the bank for. Because if they stopped at lap 47, I see someone on 44. I think everybody other than Scott Eckridge would probably need that extra fuel to handle a green white checkered situation.
For sure, yeah, you see that pit stop strategy by pit lap on your screen right now, and as you can see, so far the first 20 drivers um, uh, obviously had pit when they needed to under the green flag conditions, and then everyone from about 12th on back, James Kahula, excuse me, being the first driver to come down pit road. You can see kind of net zero positions. Um, just with the amount of cars that kind of passed him, and then he passed coming down pit road before the caution. But obviously, him staying equal, so you see all those drivers right now don't have to pit as soon as the others.
JR, I know you ran these cars a little bit earlier in the evening. I guess I'd have one question for you is I know some other cars with their tire wear, how you treat them the first, 15, maybe 20 laps of a run is really going to dictate how they treat you at the back end of half of the run. Do these cup cars, do you have that same kind of, you got to kind of use them in the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. Every track's a little bit different, but for sure, if you abuse those tires early, get the tire temps up way too fast, the tire wear will be significantly more than if you try to take care of them. So a lot of that goes into how hard you're driving the entry of the corner, and also how much input you're using with the steering wheel. So you may see some guys on this restart fall back a little bit initially, but 10, 15 laps in start going back to the front, and those are the guys that are paying attention to that tire wear and trying to trying to conserve it the best.
These drivers warming up their tires. That's why you see the weaving and rapid acceleration and then deceleration behind the iRacing pace car. Of course, the lights atop that ride currently out, which means he'll be going green this time by. Of course, he's going to make that dive down towards pit road. And immediately, Paul Pepper puts his foot on the loud pedal, leads these drivers down into turns 1 and 2. Huge start by him. He's got at least a 2 or 3 car length lead over Scott Eckridge down on the inside in that 70 car. And then Brian Yazik, who started on the front row as well.
We see Yazik and Eckridge here going side by side through 1 and 2. Yazik pulling slightly ahead, but I think Eckridge kind of got a little side draft on him, slowed him down. But Pepper having the checkup going into 3, and Yazik's going to go all the way to the lead here.
Yeah, Pepper got extremely loose heading down into turns 3, and that just allowed Brian Yazik to pull around him on the outside with that trailer park girl line, doing a great job. Now the number 29 of Paul Pepper is going to be challenged by the 70 car of Scott Eckridge. It's going to move Eckridge into second position. We'll see, though, if Paul Pepper can do anything about that.
Top 3 continuing to go back up front.
Man,
We see Joe Hester here.
extremely loose, having to go for a little bit of an adventure through the tri-oval of grass down there.
Yeah, I believe he keeps it going though, Austin. So we'll stay green here. So good news, but yeah, definitely Joe Hastert putting it in the wall there. Got a lot of damage on that car.
Yeah, all that contact going, adventure, and then no caution for these drivers and us. The race is still green. You see Paul Pepper now fighting back on the inside of the number 70 car, Scott Eckridge from Waterloo, Illinois. Scott doing a great job. Really come up from deep in the field. Started in 23rd position, so doing a great job to make his way all the way up right now to a top 3.
Yeah, for sure. So he's had a great night, and you know, he didn't have a bad night last week, obviously, because of the invert having to start in 23rd spot. So he's proven to be one of these guys you got to pay attention to. Almost 3 wide as they come off of turn 2. They get it back double file here, but Eckridge is going to push Yazik into turn 3.
Yeah, Eckridge and Pepper really thought about forcing Yazik 3 wide there, kind of splitting him on the inside and the outside. And that's just really going to allow Mike Rasmus and the number 68 to catch him.
Yeah, it definitely will. As we're watching a replay here. Oh, Travis McQuiston getting sideways off of turn 4, saving it by going through the grass here. That's actually a pretty impressive save.
Yeah, I think we saw another car on the outside of him. I believe it was the 104 here getting loose. Oh, no, this is him spinning as well. I think Django Matthews was a driver that got loose there on the outside. We see a lot of these drivers getting loose at a turn 4 and then needing to escape into the grass, go for an adventure to save it.
You got to be careful to stay off the apron through the exit of 4 there, but also just getting close to that white line. There is a ton of grip at the bottom of the track there, and the front tires will actually bite into that if you're turning the wheel too much, and the rear end will just come around on you on the exit. So I see a couple of guys having to battle through that.
Yeah, Scott got really loose on the inside there coming out of turns 1 and 2. That allowed Paul to get back down to his inside. They'll be too wide again, and I'm sure Brian is just loving this.
Yeah, I say he definitely is, because that's allowing those guys not to draft up and catch him as quickly or to be able to make a move on him. They are slowing each other down by running too wide at the moment.
High side still proving to be faster. You saw Scott really pull up to the outside of Brian Yazik through turns 1 and 2 that time, and he just kind of went from the outside of Paul Pepper now to the outside of Brian Yazik. So outside really strong in turns 1 and 2, looks equally strong in turns 3 and 4 now.
Yeah, it's a little bit surprising that 3 and 4 is that strong. I expect turns 1 and 2 for the first 20 laps of a run to kind of be the middle of the tracks where all the speed is. And I think we'll see this through here as Eckridge is able to really open up that gap and get ahead of Yazik on the exit of 2.
Yeah, Yazik now falling into the clutches of Paul Pepper as they go down the backstretch. And these two drivers are going to have to be extremely careful, because waiting in the wings is Mike Rasmus and then Thomas George, another 2 drivers that we saw be extremely fast last week as well. I think that both those drivers just kind of been waiting around, saving their tires, and don't look now, but you can see that green with the black number 4, James Krahula, the first driver to pit under that last caution. He's got 4 fresh feel goods, about 10 laps fresher than all these drivers. He's making his way up through the field here. You saw Paul get extremely loose, have to really check up down the backstretch.
These guys are really having to drive the car right now. We got a caution back on the speedway, Austin. We'll have to see what this one's for.
Yeah, second caution of the day. Another little green flag run there, about 20, maybe 15 laps long, but another decent run for sure. Oh man, that was a hard lick for, I believe that's the 104 car. It looks like again, JR just kind of got loose, and with this new steering system, the cars are really hard to catch them at the exact right time to prevent them from kind of just nosing into the wall. So not quite the night that Adam Blatel had wanted.
For sure not. And yeah, these cars are very easy to overcorrect, and it's just natural. You see the car get loose that you want to turn that wheel, but sometimes you got to hesitate just a little bit to not overcorrect.
Yeah, we'll see how many of these drivers want to head down pit road. We will take a moment, though, to go over the point system that these drivers have had. Currently, this is the third race of the season. So now is when you can get a really good idea of who's all doing how well in the points. You see Norm Pelletier obviously in that first position, of course, won at Daytona, and then Mike Rasmus behind him. Jeff Ward doing extremely well. We saw him win last week at Auto Club Speedway. Not here tonight, though, so he's going to take a pretty hard hit in the points so far. But of course, this series does have drop weeks, so not quite out of it in the championship standings is Jeff. The top five completed by Michael Stroll and then Woody Mahan.
Sixth place in points is Jason Franks. Thomas George is in seventh. Rich Jetty in eighth. James Krahula's in ninth, who we continue to see have a good run here tonight. And Chad Mikas is in 10th. So, yeah, a good night for him again.
Yeah, going through the rest of the field here, some notables around. You see Kevin Bartelta, first 2 weeks, really not what he wanted after starting first, obviously. For the first two races, you can see him battling back here. You see Adam Liddell there, and the number 104 car, 1.2 his name, obviously didn't finish too good here last week. And of course, obviously just put his car in the wall to bring out this most recent caution. So he's looking for obviously a strong timeout. Next week is, I think we go to Phoenix.
Yeah, indeed we do, Austin. That's going to be really really interesting with the way that track is.
Of course, here we have our team championship standings. You can see the order there. Won't go through it on the screen. You can see a lot of, definitely a rich team atmosphere in this series for sure. And you can kind of see stiff competition though, all the way up and down the field. So that's definitely going to be another thing to watch out for as the series goes on.
Real quick, I'd like to jump in here and just kind of give an update on the pit situation. It's going to be a lot easier to say who didn't pit. We have two guys that are going to be on the front row that chose not to pit with Michael Stroll and Chris Davis. That should make for a interesting restart here, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. John, sorry. Yeah, this is going to be interesting because those guys are definitely going to be a little bit slower on takeoff and getting through turns 1 and 2. So we're probably going to see a lot of guys fan out, at least on the exit of 2 and down the back stretch. And of course, cautions breed cautions, and anytime you throw a little excitement in there, it only heightens the possibility that another one's going to come out. So we'll have to pay attention to what happens toward the front here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Michael Stroll, one of the drivers we saw be extremely fast in Daytona, kind of popped his head into the lead battle for a couple times out in Fontana, so we'll see what he can do here for the rest of the night. And then, of course, Chris Davis, JR, John, and I know Chris. I always like to call Chris always aggressive. He always is in the dirt street socks. Sorry, John.
Yeah, I was just going to say they had already fallen about a half a second off the pace from their pit stop. So there's going to be a significant speed difference here between those front two guys and those guys that got all the fresh tires.
Yeah, I feel like this is something I just would not, I wouldn't recommend doing this. I mean, we went green for about 15 laps or so, so the tires are definitely pretty used at this point.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is they're aiming maybe at a fuel strategy, because these guys that just pitted, they're going to have to come in again. I yeah, they must like the way the car feels and feel like they can, maybe gain some spots. I mean, even, you can even, I don't know where they were running before the caution, but if they were mired back in 23rd, to 25th or somewhere back in there, if they once if they only go back to, let's say, 18th or so, before the tires kind of equal out between the guys that took them and the guys that they're on the old ones, then that's a net gain too.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really good point as well there, John. You say, these drivers can't stay up there for very long, but they can still gain at least a position or two. We'll have to see how early Michael goes. Obviously, he's the leader, so once the iRacing pace car ducks off the track down pit road, the field will be in control of Michael. He's chosen the outside line to start and forces Chris Davis then on to the bottom. Just behind these guys, though, Mike Rasmus, Scott Eckrich, and then in row three, it's going to be the number 55 of Yezik, and then the number 29 of Paul Pepper. Michael waited a really long time to get on the green. We're riding along with him. You saw him get extremely loose, kind of sideways on the start, kind of just spinning those tires. Mike Rasmus, though, really able to follow him through. And of course, the next car at the top line is Paul Pepper.
Yeah, we saw that inside line really spin the tires there on the green, and it's kind of stacked those guys up. So they're going to be looking to get around Chris Davis here pretty quickly, because if not, they're going to continue to lose a lot of spot.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something about that pretty fast. Yezik getting extremely loose coming out of turns 4. Has to back out of the throttle a huge amount. That's going to force Eckrich to get sideways, hard impact into the wall. We have another caution.
Yeah, big time unfortunate for Eckrich. He was just checking up for what was going on in front of him, and you could see the car just literally just took off to the right on him. That's a very, very bad situation to be in, and very little you can do.
Yeah, that's definitely going to end his night of competition here. He can probably still continue, but you see him kind of get a tank slapper going and then involve the next car behind him on the high side, and just nowhere for those drivers to go. And of course, Scott not doing anything wrong.
No, not at all. Just lifting off the throttle and just lifting that quickly can cause these cars to be upset, especially as you're on the exit of the corner there. The car's already kind of on edge, and when you lift, it almost wants to lock up the rear tires and just turns the car naturally. And then after that, you're trying to save it, but very little that you can do, Austin.
Yeah, once it starts kind of fish down like that, at that point, I mean, it's hard enough to catch the car when it goes one direction, then you kind of overcorrect it another, and then it's twice as hard to correct. And there just wasn't much for him to do, and obviously everything out of his control. But Michael did everything he needed to. That number 8 car, Michael Stroll, he did a great job on the restart. Obviously, he would have been run down by Mike Rasmus, now in the second position, the first car on those new tires, and then Paul Pepper just behind him. So those drivers doing a whale of a job. Chris Davis looks like he's going to stay off pit road for this caution as well. No, Chris Davis is pitting.
Yeah, Chris fell back pretty quick there once the green flag went. I think it's pretty smart. And Chris Lanini is also taking this opportunity here to pit, and as well as a few other guys that were all towards the back, probably to top off. And like you had mentioned earlier, 7 sets of tires. So if you got them, might as well use them.
Yeah, it'd be a great opportunity to put those on. We're going to take a quick commercial break, though, and be right back after these messages. Welcome back live to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway for the Memestonks Vegas 200, presented by SnoopDawgyDon at Twitch TV. Don Runkle in the number 00 car doing another good job out here tonight. Kingsman, Arizona. That's where he's from. Doing a great job for PMS Racing. A lot better job tonight, certainly, than last week out at Auto Club Speedway. It seemed like last week, if there was a wreck to be in, Don was just behind it, had nowhere to go. A lot more cautions last week out at Fontana. A lot less, though. We've only had 3 so far here in Las Vegas. So these drivers keeping it pretty clean, green, and mean so far in this event. Been a couple different leaders so far. Michael Stroll, the most recent one of those. We saw Travis McQuistion out front for a long time today, and then Paul Pepper challenged him. Those 2 drivers fought for a good while, and then we saw the number 55 car, Brian Yazik, sneak his way up through the field, then take the lead. So we've had a couple different leaders over the course of this race. Mike Rasmus, been another fast driver.
He absolutely has been one of the drivers to watch so far in the opening weeks of this league. We also see on screen there Mark Herzog. He's up from 30th starting spot at the moment, running in 4th. Kevin Bartelt running where he started in 5th position, so still having a very good, consistent night. And you see Yazik, he's up from 19th. I think Thomas George behind him is actually up from 28th. So couple of guys here. The one thing to pay attention to, Austin, it came into play a little bit on that last restart, is we've got some guys on different strategies now. We kind of have a mixture in the field, and because of that, like John said, some of these guys are going to be running slower lap times. They've already fallen off 4 or 5 tenths of a second, and sometimes that can cause some checkups throughout the field. And if you're not ready for it, I think you'll see a situation like we saw in that last caution, just where somebody tries to check up and you're just not able to.
Yeah, for sure. You see a lot of these drivers, in-car cameras, kind of just holding the wheel pretty steady so far under this caution flag here. Not a whole lot of cars using this opportunity of the caution to go down pit road and get 4 fresh field goods. We only had about 1 lap or 2 of green flag conditions on this run. The first driver to go down pit road was the number 77 car of Chris Davis. He's right now in the 23rd position. So that's where the freshest tires are going to come from. But currently up here, though, about the first 8 or so drivers on about maybe 5-lap-old tires, and you got James Kahula on about maybe 6 or 7, maybe only 1 or 2. You can see the graphic on the right-hand part of your screen there. Flag out in the air. Michael Stroll taking advantage of being the control car to start the restart. Going to use the outside lane. We've seen that be the preferred lane for a lot of the race so far, JR.
Yeah, it absolutely has been, and it'll probably be like that certainly on restarts here as they're trying to get their momentum back up and going. We can see up front, Stroll's actually being overtaken by Rasmus. He's moved into first spot right now, but Stroll coming back hard on the outside.
Well, we've got another caution, though. Cautions breeding cautions. This will be the 4th caution of the tonight. We'll see what the cause for the caution was here. Looked like that was the 72 car of Michael Krobach getting all sorts of crossed up down the front straightaway. We'll see if we can get a better view of that, but I do believe it was him. Yeah, he just got all sorts of loose coming off turn 4, made hard. No, he actually kept it off the wall. Looks like he just bounced off a couple different cars there. I don't know who the first driver was, but I think the second one was that number 44 car of Michael Whiting.
Everybody actually doing a pretty nice job there of avoiding major contact and carnage. So Krobach spinning it around. He's got some damage to the rear of his car, but nothing major. And I don't think anybody else got hurt too badly in that they'll have to come and repair anything there.
No, I think honestly, if any drivers did, it'd be on the left rear quarter panel and then the left door if they did so. Not something that should affect the speed of these cars too much, but of course we do have a new leader out on track. It looks like just before we went to caution there, Mike Rasmus was able to edge out Michael Stroll. And of course you would say, well, yeah, we saw that happen just before he went to caution, but sometimes it's really a matter of where the iRacing timing and scoring lines are for when the caution comes out. For instance, depending on where the last one was, if it still scored Michael Stroll out in front, he would then be re-gifted, or not, I shouldn't say gifted, re-given the lead in that scenario, even though Michael had passed him, even if it was by a fender or a quarter panel or an entire car sometimes. John, we see some other drivers on pit road. Who's down there?
Yeah, John Perkins, Danny Gutierrez, guys that I believe that have had some issues early on the race. You see Danny Gutierrez there that's got some damage. I'm thinking some guys are coming in, not so much for fuel or tires at this point, maybe to get a fender pulled out or whatnot. If you saw right there the 72 kind of sideswipe a couple of cars, so maybe you got a little bit of damage, and this is a good time to come in there and get all that ironed out, because these cars, we know aero is king. So if the straighter you keep your fenders, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, to your point, John, it's a lot easier to come down and lose time under caution when you can make that time back up and sort of catch back up to the pack instead of having to do all that stuff under a green flag scenario.
Yeah, it really is. And the big story to me is still Stroll is out there. He's got about 13 laps older tires. Uh, you know, what is his strategy to either get back? Is he going to stay out? I would be personally starting to get a little nervous that I might be forced to pit under green when everybody else is pitting under caution, which, if that comes to fruition, that will really, really make life difficult for him. So he's playing a heck of a game here and really rolling the dice. But hey, this is Las Vegas. We're better to take a gamble.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, John, for sure. Every time any of the top TV broadcasters come here, they always talk about, the fact you can gamble, it's Las Vegas. Sort of the old verbiage. What is it? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yeah, roll the dice, baby. And that's what he's doing here. Usually you want to roll the dice at the crap tables or, other places there along the strip. You can take your pick. There's a lot of really cool places out there. But yeah, and that's what I think he's really taking a gamble here, because if he does have to end up pitting, we've had a breakout of cautions here, and if that continues, he is going to be golden. But if we get another, 48 lap run here, he's going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, for certain. He'll have to be the short pitter compared to all the rest of these drivers. And he will have, the freshest tires. And maybe if everything goes his way, it could work out in his favor. But we'll just have to see, because I really wouldn't want to guarantee, for the 10 laps between when I have to pit and when the rest of the leaders have to pit, that there won't be a single caution. You can see the difference there. About 10, 13 laps between the 54 lap of when Stroll pit and then the number 67 lap of when the rest of the leaders pit. You can see Rasmus, Pepper, Herzog. Field, though, comes out of turn 4, getting ready to take the green flag from Barney the Flagman. The iRacing pace car lights out atop that ride. He'll make the hard left turn down pit road right there. You saw him do that. Of course, give command of the field back over to Mike Rasmus. He puts his foot down on the loud pedal, rockets that ride down into turns 1 and 2, uncontested in terms of side-by-side conflict between the rest of the drivers. Stroll now being challenged by Paul Pepper, who is on the inside as they dart down into turns 1 and 2.
Yep, Pepper's going to take that position as they exit out of 2. Stroll falls into line into 3rd place. The top 3 actually pulling away quite a bit from the rest of the field at the moment, but I think those guys are going to be able to draft up as they come off turn 4 and onto the front stretch.
Yeah, do you see James Krahul in that number 4 car? Whoa, very sideways out of him. Saves the car, not quite. Makes contact with the outside wall. We're still green so far.
Yeah, big time loose out of turn 4. I think we got another wreck.
Turns 1 and 2. Now just smoke. It doesn't look like anyone's turned around. There is a car hard into the outside wall, though. I believe that was the number 7 machine of Jason Franks. I think that was him. Color scheme sounds about right. Yeah, you see the damage, and Trevor obviously a lot better eyes than I have. He, of course, kind of verifies what I'm seeing, here, pointing the camera at.
Yeah, amazing that we stayed green after that, Austin. Two separate incidences, and these guys were able to ultimately keep the cars from spinning all the way around. You see almost there from a couple of the guys, and the 7 even going up and hitting the outside wall, but nothing major from anybody else around them.
Yeah, that was some hard contact between those 2 cars. I believe it would have been the number 7 car, Jason Franks, and I think the 66 car. Really hard to tell who that was making contact with him. I don't know what happened before those drivers made contact with each other. They might have just been trying to get out of the way of the number 25 of Chad Mikas. I think he got in the wall down the front stretch. You saw him still in the wall when we cut to that camera angle there before the contact between the 7 car and I believe the 66.
Everything's sorted out back there as we look back up front. Paul Pepper leading, but Michael Stroll making a big run to the outside of him in turn 4 here.
Yeah, he's making a bid for the lead. He wants to win this race as well. And you can see that it looks like the tires have now equalized, John.
Yeah, and I was just sitting here thinking that too. You see Stroll on the outside holding his own here, a real power move. Just think of how fast he's going to be when he gets fresh rubber on that car. Really impressive what he is doing right now.
Yeah, the rest of the top 5 so far. Mike Rasmus, the driver, he's come all the way up, like you mentioned, JR, from 27th. Mark Herzog, another driver that finished pretty well out in Fontana last week. He started in 30th position. He's just been passed by Kevin Bartelt. Right now, Bartelt has not made any positions up. He started 5th. He's still in 5th, so pretty good run out of Kevin. This is the kind of run that Kevin needed. The very rotten luck out in Daytona, and of course, just as almost equally rotten out in Fontana.
Definitely, for sure, rough start to the season. They do have drop weeks here, but Kevin's showing what he's capable of doing in this series. Having a very nice run tonight, continuing to stay in that top 5. They continue to battle up front, guys, for that lead. Stroll taking the high line, and he's 4th place in points coming into this race, and he's obviously been fast through the first 2 races and into this race, and I think more than anything with the pit strategy, he was just looking for something to get him some track position, and he's showing that he's had plenty of speed all night, just wasn't there to show it up front yet.
Yeah, one driver really wants to make his name known as someone who's obviously one of the faster drivers, just kind of offsetting the bad luck he's had so far.
Yeah, and hopefully we can stay green here. These guys are putting on a great show up front, but at the same time, they're pulling in the rest of the pack up to them. So you got the 2nd through 6th place guys running in line at the moment, drafting each other, and they're going to catch these guys pretty quickly if they continue to stay too wide.
Yeah, that's another great point, Jared, because we kind of saw the same separation happen earlier in the race when we had that really long green flag run where we had to make green flag pit stops, and there was a big separation between pack 1 and pack 2, and that separation sort of started about 7th place, and then we saw some more drivers kind of trickle into and out of that, really stabilized at about 10 cars or so.
Yeah, it did, and these guys probably can't see the big picture that's going on right now, but if these top 6 can stay in line with each other, I expect them to be able to pull away from the rest of the field. And if you do that and the race stays green, that just that gives you a better chance at the end of the race to be able to make something happen. Obviously, these guys are looking at trying to get the lead or move as far forward as they can, but ultimately they should probably stay in line for at least a little while.
Yeah, these drivers really don't want to have to fight for any longer than they have to. Of course, each one of these guys is trying to prove that they're faster than every single one of the other guys. So you do want to make a position. You want to make sure that if something does happen to the leader, you're right there to take advantage. You don't want to be the 3rd or 4th guy in line to take advantage of that, need even more luck than it would take just to pass the one car. You see Brian Yazik making another bid for 2nd spot. He'd like to go hunt down this lead from Paul Pepper. And I think this is the same kind of strategy we saw from Yazik before he took the lead for the first time, kind of just riding around, saving his tires.
Yeah, he's being very, very smart on the the first half of each run every time that we've gone green. So he's not abusing his tires any at all. He's being very methodical about where he's placing his car. And you know, if guys get by him early, that's all right. He's not going to panic and try to move back forward immediately. He's going to take his time and wait for everybody else to slow down, and he'll pick back up the positions on the middle to the back half of the run.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of in his time as long as he needs to, and of course, making that strategy more and more well known. Of course, documenting just how good it can be. You see Mike Rasmus now, the last driver on the podium. Michael Stroll, though, still doing a fantastic job on those older tires, really equalized out to his favor. And maybe this is just why we saw him stay out like we did. You know, that 10-15 lap run that everyone else had to put on their tires. He said he just kind of figured he knew he was saving his stuff.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. You know, again, we've documented how fast he's been through the first 2 races. He knows he's got plenty of speed and is able to go to the front. And he just used some pit strategy to get himself there this week, and he's been able to maintain it. So, yeah, really nice job by him. You know, if we get anything happening toward the end of the race, he's going to be in the top 5 here and be able to contend.
For sure. And John, if I put on my crew chief hat right now, if you know I'm any of these drivers, as about 5 laps or so ago, if you pit, you can make it on fuel to the end of the race if it goes green. So obviously, one more stop left in the tank for all these drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the game it becomes okay. You know, do you probably want to run it dry just because you don't want to. The last thing you want to do is try to pit early and then a caution comes out, and that's where Michael Stroll is in real danger here because he's going to have to pit, you know, 10, 13 laps before everybody else. If he has to pit, and then after he comes out, if a caution comes out, because he will lose a lap, that's really going to make his life a little bit more difficult here. So. You know, like I said, that was the roll of the dice there. And right now, these guys up front are really turning some nice laps. You know, they're in the 30-72, and Stroll with those tires is hanging on right there with the 30-84 compared to the leaders. So that drop off has not been there so bad, and he hasn't as bad as what I thought it would be. And he is hanging on there. But yeah, as we're winding down here, you are now in the window to make it to the end. The question is who blinks first, and you know, what do you do what do you decide to do? Do you go with gas only, get it out of there, right sides? There's a lot of different things here on that final pit stop that can be done to pick up a little time if you want to try it.
Yeah, for certain. Definitely that, you know, the number 88 car, Michael Stroll, he'll have to be the first driver to pit if we do go green here. But luckily for him, he will probably get the wave around, though, because I think only Chris Davis, he is the most recent car to come down in pit road, but he still couldn't make it to the end. So hopefully for Michael, then in that situation, Chris would come down pit road as well, and then he'd kind of get the wave around. He'd still, though, have to start, you know, tail end of the field. But of course, you know, he isn't a lap down, so he can kind of make his way back up through it and not have to pass everyone twice before he's able to win the race. But, you know, it could work out in his favor, too, if he does have to pit early. None of these guys blink, as you say, and then he kind of gets the advantage of doing the undercut maneuver. But I feel like as soon as he pits, the rest of these guys are kind of going to have about a 5 or 6 lap window before they decide to, you know, I need to pit too. Otherwise, I'm going to lose too much time to Michael.
Yeah, I agree. You know, like I said, right now it's they're putting their poker faces on to see who blinks first, I suppose. And I tell you, this is exciting. This has been such a great race to watch, and we're really setting up for a really fantastic last 30 some odd laps of this race.
Yeah, you saw Brian Yazek. These two at the front of the field been battling most of this race ever since about lap 30 or so between the 55 of Yazek and that 29 car of Paul Pepper. These two kind of titans of the field so far. Mike Rasmus, another driver that's kind of made his way up from 27th. And sort of, you know, 4 out of the top 5 cars here, excuse me, 3 out of the top 5 cars, we see Mark Kahn, the first driver to come down pit road. He obviously knows what we've been saying, that, you know, you can make it on fuel the rest of the race. He wants the freshest tires, the earliest compared to the rest of these field. Brian Yazek started 19th. Mike Rasmus started 27th. Michael Stroll started 25th. So a lot of these guys really made their way up through the back of the field. And you look at the top 10, it looks about 8 of these guys started 19th or worse.
Yeah, they did. So, yeah, you're seeing the guys that had good runs last week be able to start in the back and move themselves back forward here in Las Vegas. So, very impressive, and that shows or should stand out as who's going to be the guys that are up front each and every week and ultimately contending for the championship in this series.
Yeah, you can see that battle for first, the graphic on the lower right-hand side of your screen. Paul Pepper up 3 positions, Brian Yazik 17, Rasmus up 24, Michael Stroll up 21. Kevin Bartel doing a great job to kind of hang around here. Like I mentioned earlier in the race, started 5th, currently still running 5th, doing a great job.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if I can interject here, Michael Stroll pitted on lap 54. Coming around now is going to be 50 laps here, and oh, we got him in the pits.
Yeah, Stroll, the first of our lead pack coming down pit road. You
Uh,
see Chad Micas. Oh, no, sorry, Stroll
Michael.
still out there at the moment. He'll have to come down pit road in at least the next couple laps here, John. Even if you do the 2-to-1 ratio Larry McReynolds always talks about, he'll have to pit in, I want to say, the next 5 laps for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got to be really, really thinking about that. And now he's at least he's at the back of that pack there. The one nice thing if he was sitting still second, part of the danger he's going to have is getting hit from behind while he's pitting. But these guys seem to be pretty good about letting each other know when they're coming to pit road and whatnot. So, but yeah, he's got to be coming in here, I would think, in the next probably 2 to maybe 3 laps.
That's a great point you make too there, John. I usually spot for our old pit reporter last week, Kenny Kibbe, in the NIS opener fix series, and I always want Kenny to, be the last car in line, so he doesn't have to announce to the rest of the field he's pitting. He can kind of just back off whenever he wants, slow the car down, and get on pit road. No one else knows we're trying to undercut the field. So when we do finally pass them, they always go, "Hey, where did he come from?" So they don't try to undercut us as well. But yeah, Michael is sitting in a very nice spot, being the last car in line.
Yeah, he is. He'll be able to maximize his, if he's indeed the first one to come in, he'll be able to be able to get into the pits. He's not going to have to check up for anybody in front of him. He's going to be able to be aggressive on pit entry and the pit exit for that matter too. So he can make up, not only with having those fresher tires at first, he's going to be able to make up some time there, probably getting on and off pit road too.
Yeah, see the number 72 car, Michael Krobuck, just recently come down pit road. And one thing I do want to mention, the battle for the lead, right now the battle for second position between the 55 car of Yazdik and the number 68 of Rasmus. Those cars got so close together coming off turn 4. I don't think you could have fit a piece of paper between them. I mean, they were just kind of riding on each other's doors. No contact, though. Closer than what you saw just this past lap. Both those cars very ill handling.
For sure, and Rasmus actually on that lap you're talking about, Austin, actually got a little free off of 4, but did a very nice job of not overcorrecting it and kept it going straight without losing hardly any time at all. So you see Micas coming through the field at the moment on those fresh tires, just having pitted. You can see how much faster he is compared to the guys that are still out there.
Yeah, SnoopDawgyDon, Don Runkle Jr. comes down pit road just now to get his own set of 4 fresh feel goods. You see Chris Davis, the number 77 Chevrolet Camaro, also on pit road getting 4 fresh tires. So these leaders are going to have to come down pit road really soon here. Michael Stroll doing a great job to keep his car out on track. I don't know if he's got a different carburetor, maybe just a smaller engine in that car, burning a lot less fuel than we think he should be.
Yeah, and if I'm in his shoes too, I start thinking about coming in now because if he wants an advantage by having new tires, he doesn't want to back himself up to those leaders. If he comes in on this next lap, let's say, and then he's in. Michael is in.
Yeah, Michael in just behind Brad Collins. You see there the number 80 car, Josh Biddle, also down on pit road. So Michael Stroh really seizing the opportunity. I feel like he must have run his car out of gas. You see Ricky Harden, the number 3 car, comes down pit road to get his 4 fresh tires. You see the leaders, though, still out on track, turns 3 and 4. Got my eyes on them right now. Michael Stroh waiting on the left sides to be done. Those leaders still staying out. Looks like the number 55, though, Brian Yazik, he'll turn his car down pit road.
Yeah, and that's what I was
pulling people in.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. He's going to lose that advantage of having 5 or 6 laps on those newer tires to get a little separation. He's now on basically the same strategy as those other guys now that are pitting.
Yeah, I will say though, this extra lap of having those fresh tires for one more lap, at least compared to the number 55 of Yazik, is going to be worth at least a couple tenths if they get on and off pit road equally and have equal in and out laps. Should be worth a couple tenths compared to these two leaders though that have stayed out so far of Pepper and Rasmus. This is going to be 2 seconds to the good though for Stroll and only 1 second so far, assuming these two leaders come down pit road next time by for Yazik. So when they do cycle out, for my calculations, I think it'll be Stroll, then Yazik, and then Pepper, then Rasmus.
Yeah, and I think at this point, if you're Paul Pepper, Mike Rasmus, even Scott Eckridge, I think you're going to look at staying out as long as you possibly can, either hoping for the caution to come out and capture several guys a lap down here, giving you a better chance at the end of the race, or hoping that you go as long as you can and ultimately having that speed at the end of the run. Hope you can chase those guys back down that pitted early.
And JR, the one other thing too about them staying out here, with 22 laps to go, they don't have to take their full fuel load. They can basically do a splash and go, take no gas or no tires, and really cut down their time on pit road, which would gain them an enormous advantage over the other guys.
Now, JR, if you do take a splash of gas and go, you can probably afford to take at least right side tires. How does that affect the handling of the car, only taking right sides versus all four tires?
Yeah, if I've got to take any kind of fuel, half a tank or whatever, I'm definitely going to take at least right side tires, and that's going to change the handling on these cars. I haven't tried it at this track, but normally that's going to free up the car and cause it to rotate more through the corner. And the problem area for that's going to be the entry of turn one. So you're going to have to be very conscious of that as you come out on cold tires and make sure that you don't you don't overturn the steering wheel getting into turn one, or that rear end is just going to come around on you.
Yeah, you can see Paul Pepper. It looks like he got a little bit sideways off turns 1 and 2 there. I think he made some contact with the number 61 car of Jeff Gilliam. Gilliam obviously on those 4 fresh feel goods, so kind of making his way back up through the pack. He says, I'm faster than you. Why don't you get out of the way? No blue flags for me. You can put those back away.
Yeah, definitely. Paul's going to have to be very careful here as he's either going through traffic himself or being caught by guys who just pitted. He's going to have to be conscious of where they're at and position his car before he gets to the corner to avoid contact.
Yeah, it looks like now the second place driver of Rasmus has come down pit road. So Paul Pepper is going to be the last driver on this stay out strategy. I feel like Rasmus has already lost a huge amount of time compared to the rest of the field.
Yeah, if you look, Brian Yazik and Michael Stroll there are running 30-21, 30-57 compared to Paul Pepper, who put in a 31-23. So a significant time difference here.
Yeah, looking back out on track, it looks like Brian Yazik is being scored ahead of Michael Stroll by a good amount here. I don't know what the difference would be for these two drivers, the discrepancy between the two of them, because we saw Michael pit a little bit earlier. He had a pretty decent in and out lap compared to them, and so did Brian. So it might just be, how much time he spent in the box or something like that.
And Rasmus does fall behind Yazik and Stroll here. He did take 4 tires. I watched that car go up on both sides of the jack here. So we'll see if those new feel goods can get him to close that gap right back up.
For sure, Mark Herzog, the last driver to be out on those old tires, looks like he's trying to slow down for pit road entry. Gonna miss the commitment cone there, so that should be an unsafe pit entrance for him and that number 57 in and out machine. So we'll see if he does have to serve that penalty there. But you see Mark Herzog coming down pit road. Jason Franks, another one of the drivers, just now making it to pit road. You see the right side of the car go up in the air.
Yeah, and Paul Pepper, he continues to lead this race, guys, and I know that he's he's hoping for a caution to come out because that would leave only a handful of guys on the lead lap here. But I think he's he's committed to this strategy at this point. He's got to run it out, and like you guys said, take less fuel at the end if we stay green here.
Yeah, so far it's a battle for the lucky dog position between Yazik, Stroll. Scott Eckrich, though, doing a great job. We saw him pit a lot later compared to these two drivers of Yazik and Stroll. But Scott Eckrich doing a fantastic job to make his way up through the field. So currently the lucky dog would go to Yazik in that number 55 car. But Eckrich doing a great job to run him down. You see the camera panning between these drivers.
Yeah, and right now, Austin, Yazik is in that important position. He is the first car a lap down, so he is the highest running guy of the ones that have taken tires so far. As we see Paul Pepper come in here.
Yeah, Paul Pepper, we knew it was only a matter of time before he was forced to come down pit road and at least get his splash of fuel. You see Thomas George, another driver, coming down on pit road. Obviously, the driver like Thomas George in this situation, he was just hoping for a caution to come out, kind of save his race. So some have a lot of speed in the middle portion of this race. He had a really good run last week in Fontana. As didn't quite show for it in terms of overall race win, but still good points for him. Obviously showed some speed in Daytona as well. Kevin Bartelt doing another really good job out here. Kevin currently the leader, so getting some extra TV time for leading a lap. Obviously he's been the pole sitter for the past two events before this one. New Rich Jetty making hard contact with the outside wall. He's the driver running in second position right now. So most of the drivers currently on the lead lap in front of Brian Yazik for the moment. All drivers who have yet to come down pit road and take their tires. You see Mark Cohn in the number 39 car just ahead of the driver we were riding along with right then. And Mark was pretty deep in the field when he made his pit stop. He was one of the first cars to do it, but obviously it gained him a decent amount of time, but not enough to be battling with the drivers for the overall lead right now.
You know, guys, just looking, I don't know how this may come into play here, but the top four guys, I think, last pitted around lap 78, and we obviously had several cautions during that time period for those guys to be able to try to save fuel. I don't know if any of these guys have been saving this whole run or not, but, is it possible that one of those four guys could make it all the way to the end here?
I'll defer to John every time on this one, but I don't really feel like
Man, I tell you, it's going to be close because um, we saw Stroll go what 54, 55 laps. If one of these guys can do it, that's going to put it right on that number if they've been saving fuel and obviously a little bit further back, so they've probably been running a little slower fuel lap times, which means they are saving fuel. You look now at the leader just did a 33-second lap. Second place Wilco is pitting. So the leader looks like he might have backed down a little bit and is saving fuel, judging by his lap time. He is 3 seconds slower than everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his dashboard there as he went down the front stretch. He was only about 7,700 RPM, so obviously, oh no, he is
Here he
pitting
comes.
this time by. Currently, the leader overall, once everything cycles out, would be, I believe, Scott Eckrich for the moment. He was the first driver that I'm guaranteeing can make it on fuel-rich Jetty. Obviously, we just saw him pull down into the pit, so Scott was one of the first drivers to come down pit road, kind of undercut the rest of the field. Brian Yazik just behind him, and then about another second half back is Rasmus, 2 seconds behind Paul Pepper, and then the Michael Stroll right next to Eckrich, kind of side by side, those two drivers. Pepper and Stroll side by side.
Yeah, and Eckridge having some issues earlier tonight, having to come back from that's done a fantastic job. And, he had the fastest lap in the race prior to him having issues earlier, but he's since then even set an even faster lap. So he has the fastest lap of this race by over 1/10 of a second. So clearly has a lot of speed and is taking control of this race at the end here.
Yeah, doing a great job as Ackridge. Like you mentioned, though, JR had some contact with the outside wall earlier today, really showing, just like the real life races did last week at Auto Club Speedway, these cars can make contact with the wall, can lean on each other, and still have a lot of speed left in them. A lot of good speed, too. Ackridge still out front by half a second over Yazik.
He absolutely is. Looks like he's slightly pulling away, and you see Rasmus back there in the back is actually past Yazik for second place. So he could come into play in the last 5 laps here.
Yeah, one thing that also might come into play is these lap down cars. You saw the number 80 car of Josh Biddle really affect the exit there through turns 1 and 2 last lap of Scott Eckridge, kind of force him to stay one car width off the wall. And JR, kind of talk us through what needs to happen in the car to make sure you give at least another lane to the outside car that is going a lap down. You really have to. Oh, it's Paul Pepper getting extremely loose in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, great save by Paul there. But yeah, to your point, Austin, if you're one of these guys that's going to lap down, especially late in the race here, you need to be very decisive on which line you take. You need to let the leader know where you're going, not make any sudden movements. So either go to the bottom or go to the top, whichever you prefer. Just choose a lane and stay there, so the leader has plenty of time to react. And the leader can use it to his advantage. He can use it to draft down the straightaways on you, but also if you catch it at a bad place in the corner, it's going to slow you down and cause that bad arrow push. And right now, I think we got a pass for the lead occurring.
Yeah, Rasmus looking on the inside of Scott Eckridge right now. Eckridge obviously a little bit slower than Rasmus. Rasmus ran him down by over about a half a second. You see the gap between these two cars back to Paul Pepper right now an entire second.
Yeah, these guys are clearly going to be the ones that are racing for the win here. Again, lap traffic could come into play here, but Jeff Gilliam looks like he's going to do a great job staying low.
Yeah, Gilliam doing a great job keeping his car on the low side right next to the apron, allows both these drivers to go around the outside. Rasmus, though, extremely loose on the inside, really driving that car up off the center of the corner. Ackridge still on the outside holding firm, and these guys being side by side like that for that long really allows Paul Pepper to catch back up to them. And
Yeah.
Pepper he has the freshest tires out of all these drivers.
Yeah, these guys are going to have to be paying attention. They can't do that too many more times. Pepper's going to just fly right by them. We only have 2 laps to go here, so coming to the white flag this time by.
Yeah, Pepper darts down to the inside. He says, I'd like to challenge for this lead here. Kind of tries to go 3 wide, shoot up through the middle between Eckridge and Rasmus. He's going to think better of it. Forced to stay on the bottom. He's going to try to go high now. White flag, 1 lap to go. Final lap.
Yeah, he's going to have to rip the top as much as he can. He's going to have to try to get a big run here coming off of turn 2 and then do the same thing through turns 3 and 4.
Oh no, he's gonna. Oh man, Rasmus throws the block on Pepper. Pepper now forced to stay to the inside. They're 3 wide as they head through turns 3 and 4. Eckridge still on the outside. Going to be a good old-fashioned drag race as they head down the front straightaway.
Man,
That's Eckridge. Eckridge by an entire car with a lot tighter race than I thought we were going to have. I was sure Paul Pepper threw this thing away by staying out as long as he did, but those drivers stayed side by side just as long as they needed to. And how about the drive from Eckridge? Like you mentioned, JR got into the wall earlier in the race. A fantastic rally back from him.
he really took this race into his own hands. He didn't panic when he had the issues, and he fought back and was able to get up there late in the race. But that's all that matters. The pay window doesn't open until you cross the finish line at the end of the race. So he did a great job there, and amazing job by the top 3, Eckridge, Pepper, and Rasmus, as they went through turns 3 and 4 on that last lap, making no contact. That was some great driving we saw.
Yeah, fantastic job by him doing a John Force burnout down the front stretch here at Las Vegas. Obviously pulled that the late race gamble to come down pit road. He was one of the first cars to do it. That really paid off in his favor. And of course, a lot of drivers really playing differing strategies here. And John, you mentioned it earlier in the event here. It was all going to come down to what strategy played out. And these drivers taking different gambles on what they wanted to do here. And it was awesome to see this entire race unfold.
Yeah, and looking at the last pit stop time, Paul Pepper, I'm thinking only took 2 tires. You see the other guys in the 14-second bracket there. Paul was in a 10-second bracket for his pit stop, so I think that strategy, a little less fuel, and that's just that right side tires, almost paid off for him tonight. What a what a great finish! These guys, man, we didn't know who was going to win, even coming out of turn 4, and that's about all you can ask for in a race as a fan.
Yeah, definitely keeping us glued to our seats the entire time and a lot less cautions this race compared to last race. So these drivers obviously putting in a lot of practice to go ahead and get things narrowed down here. We'll go ahead and run through the entire race results before we take a quick break and then talk to our top three finishers here tonight. See, Scott Eckridge finishes in first position, followed by Paul Pepper. Mike Rasmus rounds out your podium. Brian Yazik had a strong run all night long from 19th to fourth place in the 55 car finishes in fourth. Michael Stroll doing a great job to play the strategy to his favor, finishes in fifth. Ricky Harden in sixth. Thomas George in seventh. Joe Hastert in eighth. Michael Whiting finishes in ninth. Mark Cohen rounds out your top 10. Chris Lanini comes home in 11th place with Michael Krobach in 12th. 13th place goes to James Krahula. Rich Jetty comes home in 14th place. Chad Mikas in 15th, and Jeff Gilliam in the 61 comes home in 16th position. Josh Biddle comes home 17th with the always aggressive Chris Davis in 18th. Don Runkle Jr., SnoopDawgyDon finishes in 19th with Norm Pelletier rounding out your top 20. JR?
Yeah, coming home in 21st place tonight is Casey Campbell. 22nd, John Wilco. 23rd, Django Matthews. 24th is Travis McQuiston, your pole sitter from tonight. 25th is Brad Collins. 26th, Jason Franks. 27th goes to Mark Herzog. 28th is Steve Herring. 29th, Danny Gutierrez. 30th goes to Kevin Bartelt. 31st is Stephen Miller. 32nd, Adam Blattle. 33rd, John Perkins. 34th place was Isaiah Dupree. And coming home in 35th place is Fred Thompson, who should be your pole sitter for next week.
Thank you, JR. We'll take a quick break and be right back after these messages. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we now interview your top three finishers. Mike Rasmus rounds out the podium. Mike, you did a fantastic job, really up there all night fighting in the front of the pack. Talk us through the race, man.
Yeah, I worked my way up with Paul and Scott and them, and just trying to take it easy on the tires through most of those long runs. I'm still not great on saving, so really been working on saving my tires and not working them too hard. And it was awesome to have some long runs and fewer cautions because racing's pretty good, and really enjoyed the whole race, making my way up through there. And yeah, the end was crazy. I didn't know if we were gonna make it out of turn 3 there when I blocked Paul. I had better tires than Scott, and Paul had better tires than me, and I was just trying to keep my momentum up. And I thought if I could get Scott, but we touched out of 4 a couple laps earlier, and I feel like that kind of killed my chances. But P3 is good. Really happy with it.
Yeah, that was a huge save you had to pull off coming out of turns 3 and 4 that time. I thought for sure you were going to loop that car, at least go for an adventure down in the tri-oval there, but you managed to hold on to it and talk me through kind of making your way up through the field. Obviously, you started in 27th, so, was it a whole lot of patience or just kind of taking runs when you had them?
I think it just gets harder as you move up through the field to make passes. So patience is really important because you kind of just wait for it to come to you most of the time. You know, early on in a run, maybe you can make some bold moves, but having longer races is really great with green flag runs because you can just take your time and pace yourself.
For sure. Obviously, you started pretty deep in the field last week, or this week, excuse me. So pretty good runs back to back should do you pretty good in the points. But before we go ahead and let you go, Mike, is there anyone you want to thank for your run tonight?
Just want to thank my friends at LPM and Mike Krobach for putting this league on because it's pretty good racing league and it's pretty good. And also you guys for putting the broadcast on. It's really nice to be able to watch these races.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you so much for your time. Once again, congratulations on your run tonight.
Thanks.
That was Mike Rasmus, your third place finisher. J.R. Shepard, though, has caught up with Paul Pepper, the driver who finished in second.
Absolutely, Austin. Paul, congratulations on that second place run tonight. We saw you run up front for the majority of this race, leading a lot of laps, and then obviously one of the last people to pit on that round of pit stops, come with a lot of steam at the end of the race. Talk us through the end of the race from your perspective.
Yeah, it was nice to run up front. I wasn't expecting that. To be honest, that was completely out of the blue. I haven't run a league or a sim race since California last week, but before that, it's been years. So yeah, at the end of the race, like I basically committed just to, we're gonna run this thing out of gas, and if we get a caution, trap everybody lap down, great. By the time we came down to having to pit, you were about the same amount of time to take 2 tires and fuel. So took 2 tires and fuel, and I think that's why we were able to run those guys back down again.
Yeah, we speculated, if you were going to be able to stay out, green flag stay out, and you run through that run there before pitting, whether you would take 2 tires or not, or go with no tires. So good to see that that strategy kind of played out the way that we anticipated there. How much difference was the speed though once you came back on the track after that last pit stop compared to the other guys that you were racing?
It was crazy. I didn't realize that Brian and Scott and the 68 didn't take tires until maybe 4 or 5 laps out on the track when I really caught up to the pack, and the closing rate was crazy. But at the same time, taking the 2 tires, the car was as loose as it had been the whole night. So it went through my mind to take no tires. I thought for sure Brian and Scott were going to take 2 tires. That's why I did it. But yeah, the closing rate on even 2 tires was insane.
Well, Paul, you had a fantastic run tonight. You had a lot of time on the camera, for sure. So, congratulations again on your runner-up finish tonight. Tell us who you'd like to thank for that run.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, my sponsors, HumberviewParts.ca, Thompson Photography, Redline Racing Designs, AK Motorsports, SCR, Utility Trailers, all the same sponsors that make the real race car go around in a circle are on this one, as well as obviously all my teammates over at LPM there. This is a great league, a lot of talent in this league, and looking forward to the rest of the year. And thank you guys for the great broadcast.
Hey, we appreciate it, man. Congratulations again on that run.
Thanks, Jared.
That was Paul Pepper, our second place finisher tonight, and I believe Austin is now caught up with the winner of the race, Scott Eckrich.
I have. Scott, fantastic job tonight. You did everything you needed to, including play the strategy just to perfection. Obviously, quite the gamble to come in that early. You were the first of the lead guys with at least a lot of speed to come down a pit road. Talk me through that decision.
Yeah, I kept thinking in my mind I wanted to come down about 17 to go. I'm like, 17 is about how long it takes for the tires to equal out. I'm like, I want to be, on the right side of that, and I came down with 20 to go. So didn't quite do that right, but we just we knew we were driving it super hard there. I kind of got caught up in that little melee and had to drive around it there before that long green flag run. So we were about 4 seconds back from those guys. So we drove the tires off that thing just to get up there, and luckily, and I have to apologize to Mike too. There, we pinched the heck out of him there. So, but just barely managed to hang on.
For sure, doing a great job tonight. And obviously, you started really deep in the field, gained a lot of position. So now 2 weeks back to back, great finishes. What does that do for your points position now heading into Phoenix? Is that one of your better tracks?
Yeah, we usually run pretty good at Phoenix. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to make a repeat performance. Winning tonight, we're gonna go to the back, so that'll be fun. It's kind of a question mark on this new car. I don't really know what's gonna happen. These things just seem to drive super, super different. So we'll just, I mean, obviously today was great on points, and our last 2 weeks are, well, I mean, last week was decent, but first week not so great. So we probably used a drop week already. So we probably need to have some really good finishes here from this point out.
For sure. Scott, before I go ahead and let you off the hook here, is there anyone you want to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, obviously, I'd love to thank the Graphics LC bunch and the LPM group. They're just really a bunch of great guys put this league together, and been really enjoying tonight. Got a little bumpy start, but man, it's been real fun tonight.
Well, Scott, thank you for your time. Once again, congratulations on your win. Way to make the gamble pay off here in Las Vegas. Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah, thank you guys.
That was your winner, Scott Eckrich of the Memestonks Vegas 200, presented by SnoopDawgyDon on Twitch.tv, live from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. SnoopDawgyDon, aka Don Runkle Jr., the guy who drives that 00 car, has been an avid gamer and sim racer since 1998. You can catch all of his live streams at twitch.tv/SnoopDawgyDon. The next PGRL broadcast is going to be March 8th from Phoenix Raceway. That goes live at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time here on the Virtual Grip Network. The next broadcast on the Virtual Grip Network, that was tomorrow, March 2nd. It's going to be Coast to Coast Racing League's Hometown Heroes from Volusia Speedway, and that goes live at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The two drivers on the call for that, announcers, going to be J.R. Shepard and Kenny Kibbe. I'm Austin Belke, and alongside me in the pit booth was J.R. Shepard. Down on pit road was John Hine. The man in the production trailer was Trevor Greenfield, now going through the results one last time. This has been a pretty good production of the Virtual Group Network. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.